everyone, and welcome to OCD Live. My name is Greymond, and today I wanted to talk to you about medication and how it affects OCD and whether you should take medication or not. And I mean, obviously, it's a personal choice, but I wanted to kind of tell you my own experience and how it went for me, what I see happens to other people when they take medication, and just to help you basically make a more informed choice. As you guys know, I've suffered with OCD myself, got over it, and now I help other people get over it as well. I am not a doctor, so ultimately, choice whether to take medication or not is up to you. It's basically, you just need to have all of the facts, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. Now, another thing that I wanted to say before I get into it is medication really differs from the type that you take. So just because my experience was went a certain way, that it doesn't mean that yours would go the same way. But I think it's an important topic to bring up. And in later shows, we're going to talk about relationships. We're going to talk about like family dynamics. We're going to talk about everything. But since yesterday we've been talking about the doctors and that aspect of OCD recovery, I think that it would be more fitting to talk about the medication today. Now, when I was struggling with OCD, for a certain amount of time, I took medication. It was in the very beginning, I would say that was when I took medication. It wasn't in the right away in the beginning because I didn't know I had OCD for a long time, so I was kind of just getting worse and worse without realizing what was happening. And like I told you guys in the other shows, that I was not aware of what OCD was. It was not in my family, well, that we know of. And there wasn't anything that was like common, especially coming from a European background. I find that in Europe, a lot of the time, it depending on which country, but a lot of the time it's kind of more frowned upon to talk about mental issues. And because of that, it's kind of like there's not a lot of information floating around out there. So those factors combined, I was not really aware of what OCD was, and because of that, when I first started to have the symptoms, I really didn't think it was a mental issue. My first symptoms were like HIV related things, right? So I was worried that I would have HIV, or maybe I have some other problem, and I would just kept getting tests again and again and again. And it wouldn't stop basically, so it just kept going. Um, and as I was getting these tests, it was starting to become obvious to people around me that there was something wrong, because you get a test the first time, okay, whatever, things happen. You get a test the second time, people start to think like, okay, that's okay, kinda. But when you get tests like fourth, fifth, sixth time, people start to think that maybe there it seems like there's something else going on here, because now it logically doesn't make sense to keep making the tests, to keep getting the tests done, and if the person's getting them done, then there means there's something wrong. So, but to me, I didn't understand that anything was wrong. So it took me a while to figure out that this is going way beyond basic logic or anything like that. And when I did, and I went to the doctor, they prescribed medication for me right away. And I took it. It was just as simple as that. They prescribed it, I took it. I didn't really ask any questions. But as soon as I started to take, I'm not going to name the names of the medication I took for obvious reasons, but I took an SSRI type of medication. And I can tell you that the first one I took, I don't even actually even remember the name of the first one I took, because I only took it for one day, and it was years and years ago. But it made me really sick to my stomach, and I was just nauseous, like really nauseous. And I went back to the doctor and I said, this is making me sick, basically. And the doctor didn't believe me and said that, okay, whatever, we'll prescribe you a different type. But it was kind of like, it wasn't something that they believed in. They just, they had other types that they could prescribe, so they just changed it to a different one. So that was my first experience. Then the second one went okay, but and it, just the point of the medication is to reduce your level of anxiety. So it's not like you're not getting thoughts when you're taking the medication, but your level of anxiety is a lot lower. Also, if you don't know much about how the medication works, it doesn't kick in right away. It's not like you take the medication and you start to feel better. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks to fully kick in, and maybe even longer than that. So you will probably start to see results at like week 2, that your OCD is generally less. And again, well, okay, never mind. So I'll just keep staying put on the topic. So yeah, so I took medication, and it was okay, but then I started to notice as I was taking it for a while, that every time I would miss a dose, I would have really strange side effects. And they weren't nothing. I mean, again, it depends on what type of medication you're in. um, if you guys are interested, and you can email me directly to info@youhaveocd.com, and then I can reply to you what medication I'm talking about. But anyways, I was taking that, and every time I'd miss a dose, it was really weird stuff. Like, I would have these bizarre nightmares, and just really odd things happening, like odd feelings. Um, and it was just, but when I was taking it though, everything was fine. So everything was great. My OCD was kind of lower. I was able to kind of go on with my life, do everything. But as soon as I would miss it, the withdrawal was huge. And I would feel basically like what I would say is close. Well, I don't know personally, but what I would think would be close to like a drug addict missing, a dose basically, or however they say it. But it was on that level, and but it was different because I wasn't craving it, but I could sense that, like my head felt weird, like I had like almost like a buzzing in my head. I don't remember all the symptoms, but it was on that level where it was extremely severe. And I remember that I was like, again, going back to the doctor and saying, listen, this is not right either. There's something wrong with this one as well. And basically, they're like, well, this is the only other one we have. So it's either you take the stomach problems or you take this one. So I stayed with this one because it was fine unless I was missing a dose. So I was just, very conscious of not missing it. And and that went on for some time, it had to be at least 6 months to a year, somewhere there. I don't remember anymore, but it was a while. That I was taking the medication. And, I could see that, okay, it was getting me from an OCD being 10 out of 10 to an OCD being 8 out of 10, or 7 out of 10 sometimes, right? And keep in mind that I was on a very, very high dose. So, and this is another thing that, we've already discussed doctors yesterday, but that every time rather, I would see a doctor, which would be like, I don't remember, maybe like once a month or something like that. Yeah, for the renewal of the prescription, it must have been about once a month. They would put me on a higher dose because I would be saying, I still feel pretty bad. And they would be like, okay, well, why don't we bump up the dose a little? Well, why don't we bump up the dose a little more? And then that's what I would hear every month or every other month. And, after a while, we got to a point where, there is not much up to bump up to. Like we're pretty much at max here. And, at the same time, I was feeling overall, besides the missing of the doses and all of that, but I was, I gotta tell you too that I was taking it very, very consistently. So most of the time I wouldn't miss a dose. It would be like an out of the ordinary event that happened, like I didn't fill my prescription or whatever. But so most of the days I was taking them as I was supposed to take them, and I was tired all the time. It wasn't even like I was tired, it was like more I was sleepy, like I was always ready to take a nap. and basically kind of being kind of out of it all the time, which, you know, at the time, because I was feeling so bad and I didn't know anything else, like any other way to recover, that was my only option. Because it was later that I found out all of the like recovery techniques and all of that. But you know, I was just in a really bad state, and I wasn't really doing anything to help my situation in the long run by reducing the reassurance, the avoidance, all of this stuff. I was just basically just taking medication day after day. So, and it was just getting worse. Well, it wasn't getting worse, but it was, but I wasn't feeling it because as I was getting worse, you can see right there what was happening, that I was getting worse because I wasn't doing anything to stop reassurance or avoidance or any of the compulsive whatever behaviors. And at the same time, my doctor was bumping up the dose because it wasn't working, right? So yeah, because I was getting worse, so I needed a higher dose to keep me, you know, level, basically, right? So yeah, so that was happening, and then like I said yesterday, that the doctor started talking about taking antipsychotic medication because I started to get like a false memory type of OCD, because I didn't actually start out having false memory OCD, and then it just got to a point where I was so worked up about like certain topics that it became where I needed like I was worried that something happened or something, you know, like a false memory type of OCD. So yeah, and then, you know, when they started to say, well, like, why don't we just switch you to antipsychotics, which are stronger than SSRIs. And I can see, like, again, I don't want to kind of repeat what I said yesterday, but in case you didn't hear that, like, doctor pulls out a book and sees, oh, well, if they have false memory type of thoughts, what medication do I use for that? Let me take a look at my medical book. Pulls out a medical book. Oh, okay, it's this medication. Now let me pull my medical encyclopedia, see how much the dosage is for this particular medication. Seriously. And this is supposed to be a good, professional, qualified doctor, you know? You know, I'm just telling you what I experienced. Maybe your doctor's not like that, but yeah, you know, stay away from doctors if they're doing that kind of stuff, because they don't know what they're doing. They're just not very bright, you know, because when a doctor does something like this, it just makes me really angry because they're not taking responsibility for anything. You know, they're relying on the companies that are making these drugs and that are making these books to kind of know all of the info. She didn't look at the side effects. She didn't, you know, there was nothing. She just, this is what it is. Here you go. Yeah. So that's ridiculous. In my opinion, that's ridiculous. You know, I'm not a doctor, but, you know, I would never advise my clients to do something that I thought would be in any way or could in any way be harmful, or, you know, like, think, you know, basically think before you do something. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into the angry side of it. Um, so yeah, but the real fun stuff started to kick in when I started to find out more about OCD. So as I started to learn about OCD and developing the method that, you know, now as I overcame OCD and then I started to help other people, and the method I use today to help other people as well, as I started to first develop this method and I started to see real improvements, I started to think, you know, maybe I don't need this type of medication. Maybe I don't. I never actually, by the way, I never took the antipsychotics. I said, no, we're sticking with SSRIs. I'm not going any further than that. We're already at a very high dose. And that, I think, kind of spurred me to research more and all of this kind of stuff and say, okay, you know, we got to figure this out. I was researching before then, so I think I was kind of ready, but that really kicked it into high gear, that I saw that the doctor had no idea, that I have no backing here, I have no safety net, and I'm really, really suffering, you know. So, you know, once that situation happened, then I knew I had to do something. So I started to look into it. And, you know, the more I figured out that with a lot of research and a lot of trial and error of basically doing everything wrong and figuring out, oh, that's not working, this is not working, this is not working, and finally figuring out what does work. And then when I started to do what does work, I started to feel better fairly quickly. you know. So within a few months I was a lot better off, and then I thought, I don't need this medication. What the hell am I, sorry, pardon my language. What am I taking it for, is what I meant to say. um and Yeah, and then I started, and because I was, you know, not as old as I am now and not as wise. um, Not that I'm wise now, but I'm wiser. But I dropped medication all at once. Let me tell you the fun ride that began for me after that. It took about 2 months to start to feel anywhere near normal. The nightmares were daily. I would fall asleep during nap time, like for a nap. It would I would have this nightmare. It was ridiculous. My mind, I felt like my eyes wouldn't focus on things. I couldn't hear very well. My head was buzzing like all the time. It's, when I remember one symptom was when I would move my eyes from side to side, like say like I'm looking like right, and then I would turn and look left. Not turn with my whole head, but just with my eyes. I could hear buzzing as my eyes moved. I'm not, like I'm serious. I'm not joking. Like these are the symptoms that I would have. It was crazy. And but I kept, but the recovery was going fairly well. Like yeah, as you probably know, if you're following my method, or if you're following any method of recovery, that it's not always a perfect road, but it was kind of like, it was going well. I was feeling better and better. I'd have a setback every once in a while, but I was recovering. And then but these symptoms were something else. So, and it took a few months to actually fully get rid of these symptoms, and I was so tired still, and just couldn't function, like basically withdrawing, like a drug addict having a full blown like withdrawal. So yeah, so that's my story of taking medication, and I wanted to share it with you because I just want you to understand, because your doctor might not tell you what can actually happen. And I'm telling you, like as you can see here, I'm not saying the names of the medication. I'm just giving you my story and what happened to me. Maybe your medication is different, maybe your doctor is different, maybe your situation is different, but I want you to understand what you're getting yourself into, that it's not just like a tic tac, it's very serious. And um, no matter the brand, and I think no matter the type of medication, because I was taking SSRI, so maybe you're taking SSRI but a different brand, but think of what it actually did to my brain for me to be moving my eyes and feeling a buzz in my head. you know I was on a high dose though, but still, but it wasn't like, you know abnormal. It was still like a normal but high dose, like on the books high, not like something crazy, my doctor made up. No, it was regular high dose. So if your SSRI medication is different, yes, the brand is different, but how it works is the same. So if it was doing this to me, chances are if you're taking a similar one, it could be doing something like that to you. I'm not saying it is, I'm saying it could, you know. Um, so I just want you to keep in mind that it's very, very serious what SSRIs do. Now, at the same time, if you're in a situation where you are feeling like you cannot stop doing reassurance, or you can't stop avoiding, if you can't stop those things, you are getting worse. So every time you do a compulsion, every time you do avoidance, every time you're doing reassurance, you are making OCD worse, and you're ensuring that the next thought you get is going to be stronger and more harder to resist. So if you can't find any other way to stop yourself from doing reassurance, then you should consider medication, but only as a temporary solution. So, because medication is going to bring your anxiety down a little bit. So it's going to bring it down to, say, closer to, like, say if it was 10 out of 10 anxiety, it would bring it to like maybe like a 7 or something like that, on like a mid to high dose. Um, or an 8 out of 10 if it's to lower dose. So something like that. So it's going to take it down a notch, basically. And as it takes it down a notch, it's going to make it easier for you not to refuse reassurance and avoidance and just keep going and persevere in your recovery. So as a temporary solution, I don't think it's a bad idea. Also, because if you take it for 2-3 months out of your life, yeah, it has severe, but 2-3 months, and then you can actually recover, and it can give you that extra push. That might not be a bad idea. Also, but only if you need it, because like I'm telling you, the side effects are crazy. So I mean, if you don't need it, don't take it. And the other thing too, I have to say that it was my kind of unsmartness, if you want to say that, that made me stop all in one time. You're supposed to wean off of it. You're not supposed to just drop your medication. So but I'm just saying that look at how much it does, when you do this kind of stuff. Like when you just drop it and you see how much it's actually affecting your mind, how much it's actually affecting you. It's serious. That's what I kind of want to get across in this video, that it's a serious choice, it's a serious step. It's not just like, oh, well, like I'm taking Tylenol, so I can take this. So, but yeah, and then another obvious situation where you need to take medication for, as a temporary thing, is if you feel like you're close to a nervous breakdown, because it's better to temporarily take medication and kind of not get into that bad of a state, rather than refuse medication, get into a horrible state of anxiety, and then not know what to do, and then still need medication because you're already so bad that now you can't for sure refuse the reassurance. So I would say that and it depends on your health, depends when you're where you are in life. If, for example, you're going through pregnancy, I would suggest not to take medication if at all possible. And I mean, it's your choice anyways, but if you can go without it, then obviously it's better to go without. So yeah, so that's just kind of like my views on medication and kind of what happened to me. And if you Google SSRI withdrawal, or type it into YouTube or something like that, you will see people withdrawing from SSRIs, and some of the stories. And I mean, I watched some, and I can tell you that, yep, true. Hard to believe, but true. And so that's just kind of my story. I wanted to share that with you. If you guys have any questions, you can always ask me in the chat window. We don't have much time. I think we have another like 8 minutes or something like that. If there's questions, I can keep it a little longer. It's okay. But yeah, just I think that starting OCD live and doing these first two topics is important, like the doctors and the SSRIs. And later on, we'll talk, like tomorrow, we'll talk about relationships and OCD recovery. And we're going to go into specific OCD topics and everything else as well. If you do want one-on-one help with me, you can go to youhaveocd.com, and all the information is there. There's a private recovery program. There's different books for OCD recovery as well. So, or if you have any questions that you would like me to answer directly, you can email me at info@youhaveocd.com, and only I receive those emails, so everything stays private, so nobody else is going to see it. And trust me, don't feel bad sending me anything, like any questions or anything like that, because I've heard everything. I talk to a lot of people each day. I heard everything. And at the end of the day, it's all OCD. All these thoughts are not real. And I mean, you can come up with anything, right? A human mind can come up with anything, and just to frighten itself, basically. So don't worry about anything like that. Yeah, so if there is no questions, I guess we will let's wait for a few more minutes. Another topic too that I wanted to kind of reiterate with the medication is, honestly, just like we talked yesterday, being choosy with the doctors, also being choosy with the medication. Maybe if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't have needed medication. Let's start there. But if I, was choosier with my medications, then maybe I wouldn't have had those withdrawals as well. I don't know. Maybe I would have, I'm not sure. But again, I only went with one, didn't like it, went with the other, and then I just stayed with the other. And I knew those side effects were there when I stopped, like I said, like when I was withdrawing just for like a day because I didn't refill my prescription, didn't take it for a day. So I noticed those symptoms even then. Um, but yeah, and another thing is, and I mean, okay, with this one, I don't know if it's true, but I have to kind of say it because that's, you know, I with all my clients and with you guys as well, like I want to be completely honest because I think that with OCD there's a big lack of there's a lot of stigma and there's big lack of honesty between people, and there's really, you know, it's life, you know, we get these kind of things where we don't know what to do with them. So I just want to share my experience, and I just want to say that even after I stopped taking medication, even up to now, and I don't know if this is related or not, okay? So maybe it's not, but maybe it is. But the timing is exactly right. That I started, as soon as I stopped medication, I developed like a hearing problem where I would hear a noise, but I wasn't sure. Say, for example, if I'm standing between two rooms in a building and a noise is coming from a room, sometimes I'll have a hard time trying to figure out which room it's coming from. And that started directly after me taking medication. I haven't really looked into how to fix it because it's not really something that bothers me on, you know, often. But, you know, and that stayed with me through the years. Now, I don't know if it's related, if it's maybe just some other medical problem that I have or something else completely unrelated. But, you know, I just want to put it out there that even now I'm seeing something. So, and you know, it's been what, like almost 10 years now, right? So, long time ago. And yeah, it's, you know, it's still kind of there. So just FYI, you know, there could be long-term things as well. Maybe not, but putting it out there. So yeah, so I hope you guys find this kind of information useful. If you guys have any additional questions, please feel free to ask, and I will answer in my next video. I also have a few questions I kind of didn't get to yesterday, and I didn't get to today because I got very passionate about talking about the medication stuff. So I will get to those tomorrow, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching again, and this was OCD Live. Again, if you have any questions you want me to answer privately, you can email me at info@youhaveocd.com. Thank you guys, and see you tomorrow.